The alarm bells rang through every corner of Nexus Prime Station. Red lights flashed in the corridors as alien beings rushed to their emergency posts. Something big was happening in the outer system, and nobody knew what it was. Ambassador Zara Mitchell ran down the metal hallway toward the council chambers. Her human feet made loud sounds on the floor as she moved past confused alien delegates. The Galactic Council had called an emergency meeting, but they had not told her why. As Earth's only voice in galactic politics, she needed to know what was going on. The council chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, delegates from dozens of alien species sat in their special chairs. The room buzzed with worried voices, speaking in many different languages. At the center of the room, a huge screen showed the darkness of space. Council leader Vextar stood at the front. His blue skin looked darker than usual, and his 4 arms moved in nervous patterns. The tall hegemony leader had ruled the council for 20 years, but Zara had never seen him look scared before. "Fellow delegates," Vextar said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "we have received a transmission from the outer system. The message came from humans." Zara felt her heart skip. Humans? That was impossible. Earth had signed the Treaty of Sol 50 years ago. Her people were not allowed to leave their home system without permission. The treaty was clear about that. "Show us this message," called out Ambassador Krellnos from the ethereal dominion. His ghostly form floated above his chair, glowing with soft white light. Vextar touched a control panel. The main screen flickered and changed. A human face appeared, looking directly at the camera. The man had short brown hair and cold green eyes. He wore a military uniform that Zara did not recognize. "This is Captain Jake Harrison of the United Earth ship Vengeance," the man said. His voice was calm, but carried an edge that made everyone in the room go quiet. "We are requesting immediate docking permission at Nexus Prime Station." The image changed to show a ship. Zara gasped when she saw it. The vessel was massive, bigger than anything humans had ever built before. Its black hull stretched for miles, covered with weapon systems she had never seen. Strange blue lights pulsed along its sides and energy crackled around its main guns. "That ship," whispered Delegate Mordan from his seat near Zara. "It's larger than our battle cruisers." Captain Harrison's face returned to the screen. "We come bearing an important message for the Galactic Council. We will arrive at your station in 6 hours. Please prepare for our arrival." The transmission ended. The council chamber fell silent except for the hum of the station's air systems. Zara stared at the blank screen, her mind racing. Who was this? Captain Harrison? Where had that ship come from? And why did she know nothing about it? Vextar's voice broke the silence. "Ambassador Mitchell," he said, turning his yellow eyes toward her. "Explain this violation of the Treaty of Sol." All eyes in the chamber focused on Zara. She felt the weight of their stares, some curious, others angry. The hegemony delegates looked especially upset. They had worked hard to keep humanity contained in their home system. "I don't know," Zara said honestly. "Earth's government has followed the treaty for 50 years. We have no ships capable of interstellar travel except for my transport vessel." "Then how do you explain this?" Vextar demanded. He gestured at the screen where the image of the massive warship still glowed. "I can't," Zara replied. "This is the first I've heard of any human ship in this sector. The name Vengeance is not in our fleet records. Neither is Captain Harrison." Delegate Yilvera from the Corvin Collective leaned forward. Her insect-like features clicked together as she spoke. "Perhaps the humans have been building ships in secret. Their species is known for deception." "That's not true," Zara protested. "Earth has been completely open about our activities. We submit regular reports to the Council." "Reports can be falsified," said another delegate. The argument continued, but Zara stopped listening. Her thoughts turned to Earth and the leaders there. President William Hayes would have told her if Earth was planning anything like this. The military commanders reported to the civilian government. There was no way they could have built a ship like the Vengeance without everyone knowing, unless someone had left Earth long ago and built it somewhere else. The idea made her feel cold inside. 50 years ago, when Earth signed the treaty, not. Everyone had agreed with the decision. Some military leaders had called it surrender. They had wanted to fight the hegemony rather than accept restrictions on human expansion. A new alarm sounded through the station. This one was different, deeper, and more urgent. Vextar touched his communication device. "What is it?" he demanded. "Sir," came a voice from the station's control center. "The human ship has arrived early. It's right outside our docking bay." The main screen flickered and showed a view from outside the station. The Vengeance hung in space like a sleeping giant. Up close, it looked even more dangerous. Its weapons were clearly visible, and they were all pointed at the station. "How did it get so close without our sensors detecting it?" Vextar asked. "We don't know, sir. It just appeared. Our instruments are having trouble scanning it properly." Zara studied the ship on the screen. The technology looked human, but it was far beyond anything Earth had ever produced. The hull design was sleek and efficient, built for war rather than exploration. This was not a ship made for peace. Another transmission came through. Captain Harrison's face appeared again, but this time the view showed him standing on what looked like a command bridge. Behind him, Zara could see other humans working at control stations. They all wore the same unknown military uniforms. "Nexus Prime Control," Harrison said. "This is Captain Harrison. We are beginning our docking procedure. Please clear Docking Bay 7 and prepare to receive our diplomatic party." "You do not have permission to dock," Vextar replied quickly. "The Council has not approved your request." Harrison smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "With respect, Council Leader Vextar, we are not asking for permission. We are informing you of our intentions. The days of humanity requesting permission for anything are over." The transmission ended again. On the screen, the Vengeance began moving toward the station. Its massive bulk blocked out the stars as it approached the main docking area. "This is an act of war," declared Ambassador Thekmal from the Hegemony Military Division. "They are violating our space without authorization." "Should we activate the station's defenses?" asked another delegate. Vextar looked at the weapon readings displayed on his personal screen. The station's defensive systems were powerful, but they seemed small compared to what the human ship was carrying. "No," he said finally. "We will hear what they have to say, but this violation will not be forgotten." Zara watched the docking procedure begin. Whatever was happening, she knew that nothing would be the same after today. The humans aboard that ship were not the same people who had signed the Treaty of Sol 50 years ago. They had changed into something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. And they had come back home. Supreme Commander Kelthon received the report while reviewing fleet positions in his command center on Hegemony Prime. The massive alien stood over 8 feet tall, his scales glowing with the dark red color that marked his species during times of anger. He had ruled the Hegemony military for 30 years, and no one had ever dared to threaten him like this before. "A human fleet," he said, his voice echoing through the command center. "Impossible. Our intelligence services would have detected any large-scale construction projects." Admiral Morketh, his second-in-command, brought up tactical displays on the main screen. "The reports are confirmed, sir. Long-range sensors show at least 40 human vessels in the Nexus Prime system. Their technology appears to be significantly advanced beyond our previous assessments of human capabilities." Kelthon studied the sensor readings. The human ships were larger than he had expected, and their energy signatures suggested weapon systems that he did not recognize. Most disturbing of all, they had somehow managed to hide their entire fleet until they chose to reveal themselves. "How long since the last full military assessment of Earth?" he demanded. 15 years, sir. Standard monitoring indicated no significant military development. Earth's defensive fleet consists of approximately 200 vessels, none larger than cruiser class. Then where did these ships come from? Admiral Morketh activated another display. Intelligence suggests they may be connected to the human military units that disappeared after the Treaty of Saul was signed. Admiral Crawford and her fleet were never found. Kelthon remembered Crawford. She had been the most dangerous human military commander during First Contact, the one who had defeated his patrol fleet at Tau Ceti. He had assumed she was dead after all these years, but perhaps he had been wrong. "Mobilize the Third Fleet," he ordered. "I want every available ship moving toward Nexus Prime within the hour. We will not allow these humans to threaten galactic stability." "Sir," Morketh said carefully, "perhaps we should attempt diplomatic solutions first. The humans have made demands, not declarations of war." Kelthon's scales darkened further. "They destroyed hegemony property and threatened the Galactic Council. That is an act of war, regardless of what they call it. We respond with force." Orders went out across the hegemony fleet network. From bases throughout the core worlds, warships began moving toward the Nexus Prime system. The Third Fleet was the hegemony's most powerful military formation, consisting of over 300 vessels, including 12 super dreadnoughts and 40 battle cruisers. Admiral Torval received his orders while his flagship, the Dominion's Pride, was conducting patrol operations near the Rim territories. His fleet of 60 ships immediately changed course and began the journey toward Nexus Prime at maximum speed. Meanwhile, in the outer Nexus system, Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and watched hegemony ships dropping out of hyperspace. The human fleet had been expecting this response, and they were ready for it. "Contact Captain Harrison," Turner ordered his communications officer. "Tell him the party is about to begin." Turner was a veteran of 15 major engagements during humanity's expansion phase. He had helped design the new combat doctrines that the Terra Liberation Front had developed during their 50 years in exile. While other species had focused on building bigger and more heavily armored ships, humans had learned to fight smarter. The Retribution was smaller than most hegemony battleships, but it was faster and more maneuverable. Its weapons were designed for precision rather than raw power, and its crew had trained for years in tactics that no alien military had ever encountered. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Kelly Davis from the sensor station, "Hegemony Third Fleet is forming up at the edge of the system. Count shows 280 vessels." Turner smiled grimly. The aliens outnumbered the human fleet by more than 6-1, but numbers meant nothing if they were used incorrectly. The hegemony military had become complacent during their long period of dominance. They relied on superior firepower and intimidation rather than tactical innovation. "Signal the fleet," Turner commanded. "Begin dispersal pattern 7. All ships switch to combat stealth mode." Across the human formation, ships began to fade from sensors as their stealth systems activated. The technology was new, developed by human engineers who had spent decades studying captured hegemony equipment. It would not hide them completely, but it would make targeting much more difficult. Captain Maria Santos commanded the UES Defiance from her position in the 2nd Battle Group. Her ship specialized in close-range combat, using speed and surprise to get inside enemy defensive perimeters. She had been one of Admiral Crawford's original officers, a young lieutenant 50 years ago who had grown into one of humanity's finest ship commanders. "All stations report ready," her executive officer announced. "Good," Santos replied. "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves today. We're fighting for every species that has ever been oppressed by hegemony arrogance." The hegemony fleet began its advance, moving in the traditional formation that had served them well for centuries. The largest ships formed the center line, with smaller vessels protecting their flanks. It was a formation designed to maximize firepower while minimizing risk to the most valuable units. Admiral Torval watched the tactical display from his command chair. "Human fleet strength? Difficult to determine precisely," his sensor officer reported. They appear to be using some kind of jamming technology. Estimate 40 to 50 vessels, mostly in the cruiser to battleship range. Acceptable odds, Torval said. Begin the attack. Target their largest ships first. The hegemony fleet opened fire at maximum range, sending waves of energy beams and plasma torpedoes toward the human positions. It was a devastating barrage that would have crippled any conventional fleet. But the human ships were not where they appeared to be. The sensor ghosts that the hegemony fleet had been targeting were decoys, sophisticated holograms created by the Terra Liberation Front's electronic warfare specialists. The real human ships were already moving, using their superior speed to close the distance while the aliens were firing at empty space. Now, Captain Turner commanded. The Retribution dropped its stealth field and opened fire on the nearest hegemony, battleship. The human weapons were different from anything the aliens had faced before. Instead of trying to overwhelm enemy shields with brute force, they used focused particle beams that could penetrate defensive barriers at specific frequencies. The hegemony ship's shields failed after only 3 hits. The 4th shot punched, through its hull, and detonated inside the vessel's main reactor. The explosion tore the alien ship apart from the inside out. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human ships emerged from stealth to strike at confused hegemony vessels. The aliens had expected a traditional fleet engagement with opposing lines of battle. Instead, they found themselves fighting individual duels against opponents who seemed to appear and disappear at will. Captain Santos brought the Defiance alongside, a hegemony cruiser, and opened fire at point-blank range. Her weapon systems had been designed specifically to penetrate alien armor, using techniques that human engineers had developed by studying every piece of hegemony technology they could acquire over the past 50 years. Direct hit on their command section, reported her weapons officer. Target is disabled. Move to the next target, Santos ordered. Keep us moving. Don't give them time to coordinate their response. The hegemony fleet was in chaos. Their traditional tactics were useless against opponents who refused to fight according to established patterns. Human ships would appear, strike hard, and then vanish back into stealth before effective return fire could be organized. Admiral Torval watched his formation falling apart and realized that he had made a terrible mistake. All ships fall back to defensive positions. Reform around the super dreadnoughts. But it was too late. The human fleet had scattered his forces, and now they were picking off isolated alien ships one by one. The hegemony vessels that tried to retreat found themselves pursued by human fighters that were faster and more agile than anything in the alien inventory. Captain Turner studied the tactical display and saw that the battle was almost over. In less than 2 hours, the human fleet had destroyed or disabled more than half of the hegemony Third Fleet. The remaining alien ships were trapped in a defensive formation that was slowly being torn apart by human hit-and-run attacks. Signal. Admiral Torval, Turner ordered. Offer him terms for surrender. The alien commander's face appeared on the main screen. His scales had turned pale with shock and defeat. Behind him, Turner could see smoke and sparks from damaged systems throughout the alien ship's bridge. What do you want? Torval asked. Your immediate withdrawal from this system, Turner replied. Take your remaining ships and go home. Tell your superiors that humanity is no longer bound by the Treaty of Sol. Torval hesitated. Surrender was not something hegemony commanders did lightly, but he could see the tactical display as clearly as Turner could. His fleet was beaten, and continuing the fight would only result in more casualties. Agreed, he said finally. But this is not over. The hegemony will not allow this insult to go unanswered. We're counting on it, Turner said with a cold smile. The galaxy needs to. The memory hit Zara like a wave as she sat in her quarters aboard Nexus Prime. 50 years ago, she had been a young diplomat fresh out of Earth's academy. The first contact with alien life had been the most important moment in human history, and she had been there to witness it all. It had started with excitement. Earth's first interstellar colony ship, the New Horizon, had reached Alpha Centauri and begun building humanity's second home. The colonists had been there for only 6 months when the alien ships arrived. The hegemony vessels were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They moved through space like living things, their hulls shining with colors that human eyes had never seen before. When they made contact, their message was simple: "Welcome to the galaxy." Earth's leaders had been thrilled. Finally, humanity would join the great community of intelligent species that filled the stars. The aliens promised knowledge, technology, and friendship. All humanity had to do was follow the rules that kept peace between the different species. At first, everything went well. The hegemony shared some of their simpler technologies with Earth. They helped human scientists understand faster than light, travel, and energy weapons. They even provided Earth with a seat on the Galactic Council, making humanity one of the youngest species ever to receive such an honor. But problems started quickly. Humans were different from the other species in the galaxy. They were more aggressive, more willing to take risks, and much harder to control. When pirates attacked the Alpha Centauri colony, the human military response was swift and brutal. They did not just drive off the attackers. They hunted them down and destroyed every pirate ship in the system. The alien delegates had been shocked. Other species would have reported the attack to the hegemony and waited for official action. Humans had taken justice into their own hands, and they had used far more force than the aliens thought was necessary. "Your species is too violent," Council Leader Morthek had told Earth's first ambassador. "You solve problems with weapons instead of words. This cannot continue." More incidents followed. Human traders fought back against alien customs officials who demanded bribes. Human explorers ignored warnings about dangerous space and went exploring anyway. Human colonies defended themselves against threats that other species would have simply avoided. Each time, the Galactic Council became more concerned about humanity's behavior. They began to see humans as a threat to the peaceful order they had spent thousands of years building. The final incident happened when human military vessels encountered a hegemony patrol fleet near the Tau Ceti system. The alien commander had ordered the humans to submit to inspection, claiming their ship was carrying illegal weapons. Captain Lisa Crawford, commanding the UES Independence, had refused. "We are in neutral space," Crawford had replied. "You have no authority here." The hegemony ships had tried to board the human vessel by force. Crawford had responded by opening fire. Her ship was smaller and outnumbered, but human tactics and weapons proved superior. When the battle ended, 3 alien ships had been destroyed, and the Independence had escaped with minor damage. The galaxy had been horrified. No species had ever defeated hegemony ships in open combat. Worse, humans had killed aliens who were only doing their job. The incident proved what many species already feared. Humans were too dangerous to remain free. The ultimatum came within a week. Supreme Commander Kelthon himself had delivered it to Earth's leaders. Humanity had 2 choices: accept complete restrictions on their expansion and military activities, or face war with the entire hegemony alliance. President Chen at the time had called an emergency meeting of Earth's government. The debate had lasted for days. Some leaders wanted to fight, believing that humanity could win if they prepared properly. Others argued that resistance was hopeless against an alliance of hundreds of worlds. The military leaders had been split. Admiral Crawford and her supporters had wanted to reject the ultimatum and prepare for war. They believed that human determination and adaptability would overcome alien numbers. General Morrison and the Army commanders had disagreed, pointing out that Earth had only a few dozen ships against thousands of alien vessels. In the end, fear had won. Earth's government had accepted the Treaty of Sol, agreeing to withdraw all human presence from interstellar space. The colonies would be abandoned, The military would be reduced to a home defense force, and humanity would remain in their home system until the Galactic Council decided they were ready to rejoin galactic civilization. The signing ceremony had been held aboard a hegemony flagship in Earth orbit. Zara remembered watching President Chen put his signature on the document that ended humanity's dreams of expansion. Most of Earth's population had supported the decision, believing it was better to live in peace than die in war. But not everyone had agreed. Admiral Crawford had refused to sign the military sections of the treaty. She had argued with the civilian leaders right up until the last moment, insisting that humanity was making a terrible mistake. "You're not making peace," she had told President Chen. "You're accepting slavery. The hegemony will never let us be equals. They'll keep us locked in this system forever." Crawford had been wrong about one thing. The hegemony did eventually allow limited human participation in galactic affairs. Zara herself was proof of that. But the Admiral had been right about the core issue. 50 years later, humanity was still restricted to their home system, still treated as dangerous children who could not be trusted with real freedom. The night after the treaty was signed, Admiral Crawford and her most loyal officers had disappeared. They had taken 12 of Earth's most advanced warships and vanished into deep space. The official story was that they had gone rogue, but everyone knew the truth. They had rejected the treaty and chosen exile over surrender. Search parties had looked for them for months, but the missing ships were never found. As years passed, most people assumed they had died somewhere in the vast emptiness between stars. Some romantic stories claimed they had found a hidden world where they continued the human dream of expansion, but no one really believed such tales. Now, 50 years later, a human warship had appeared at Nexus Prime with technology far beyond anything Earth possessed. The captain had claimed to represent something called the United Earth Ship Vengeance, a name that did not exist in any official records. Zara felt a chill as she realized the truth. Captain Jake Harrison and his ship were not from Earth. They were the children and grandchildren of Admiral Crawford's missing fleet. They had not died in space. They had been building and preparing, waiting for the right moment to return. The question was, what did they want? And what were they prepared to do to get it? Her personal communicator buzzed. The voice of her aide, Tony Martinez, came through the device. "Ambassador Mitchell, the Council is requesting your immediate presence in Chamber 7. The human ship has docked, and Captain Harrison is requesting to address the full assembly." Zara stood up and straightened her diplomatic uniform. Whatever happened next, she knew that humanity's long isolation was about to end. The only question was whether it would end in triumph or disaster. See what happens when you try to suppress humanity. The news of the hegemony's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Within hours of the battle, every major species had received reports about the mysterious human fleet that had destroyed the Third Fleet without losing a single ship. The victory sent shockwaves through established galactic politics and changed everything. On the Zalari homeworld, President Genva called an emergency session of her government. The Zalari had been one of the first species to suffer under hegemony. Restrictions, forced to limit their expansion to only 12 worlds, despite having the resources and population to support hundreds of colonies. "Confirm these reports," Genva ordered her intelligence chief. "Are the humans really capable of defeating hegemony fleets?" "The evidence is clear, Madam President," replied Director Colvon. "Long-range sensors detected the battle and communication. Intercepts confirmed the destruction of most of Admiral Torval's fleet. The humans used tactics and weapons that our military analysts have never seen before." Genva studied the tactical reports with growing excitement. For centuries, her people had dreamed of breaking free from hegemony control, but they had never dared to act. The aliens were too powerful, their fleets too large, their retribution too certain. But if the humans could defeat them, "Contact the human fleet," she ordered. Tell them the Zalari Republic wishes to discuss mutual cooperation. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds throughout the galaxy. Species that had been suppressed for generations suddenly saw hope for the first time in centuries. The humans had proven that the hegemony could be beaten, and now everyone wanted to know how. Commander Lisa Rodriguez received the first diplomatic contact while aboard the UES Freedom in the Outer Nexus system. As the Terra Liberation Front's chief negotiator, she had been expecting approaches from various alien governments, but the speed and number of requests surprised even her. "How many so far?" she asked her aide, Lieutenant Bobby Clark. 17 formal diplomatic inquiries in the past 6 hours, Clark reported. The Zalari, the Corvin Collective, the Tau Confederacy, and 14 smaller systems. They all want to discuss trade agreements and military cooperation. Rodriguez smiled. This was exactly what Admiral Crawford had predicted 50 years ago. Once the galaxy saw that the hegemony could be defeated, the oppressed species would line up to join the rebellion. The humans would not have to fight alone. "Schedule meetings with all of them," she ordered, "but keep the discussions separate. We want to evaluate each potential ally individually before we commit to anything." However, not all the galaxy's reactions were positive. In the ancient halls of the ethereal dominion, Archon Prime Talseth convened the High Council to discuss the human threat. The Ethereals were the oldest known species in the galaxy, and they had originally sponsored humanity's entry into galactic civilization. "We have created a monster," Talseth said, his glowing form pulsing with distress. "The humans were supposed to be guided gradually towards civilized behavior. Instead, they have become exactly what we feared they might become." The other Archons floated in their ceremonial circle, their ancient minds contemplating the implications of human military success. For thousands of years, they had worked to maintain stability in the galaxy by preventing any single species from becoming too powerful. "The humans threatened to upset that balance. Perhaps we should have destroyed them when we had the chance," suggested Archon Velmore. "Their aggressive nature was apparent from first contact." "The hegemony convinced us that restriction would be sufficient," Talseth replied. "They assured us that humans could be controlled through economic and political pressure. We were wrong to trust their judgment." The debate continued for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. The ethereal dominion would support the hegemony against the human uprising, using their advanced technology and ancient knowledge to help restore the old order. Meanwhile, aboard the Vengeance, Captain Harrison faced problems of his own. Dr. Ben Carter, the ship's chief medical officer, had requested an urgent meeting to discuss crew psychological evaluations. "Captain, we have a problem," Carter said as he entered Harrison's ready room. "The crew is showing signs of severe stress. Many of them are having difficulty processing what we've accomplished." Harrison looked up from his tactical reports. "Explain." "For 50 years. We've been preparing for this moment," Carter continued. "We've trained for combat, planned for rebellion, dreamed of returning to challenge the hegemony. But now that we've actually done it, many crew members are realizing that we can never go home again." The doctor activated a personal display device, showing psychological assessment charts. "Look at these numbers. Anxiety levels are up 40% since the battle. Depression indicators are climbing. Several crew members have requested transfers back to Earth, even though they know that's impossible." Harrison studied the data with growing concern. He had been so focused on military success that he had not considered the emotional cost of their victory. The humans aboard his ships had been born in exile, raised on stories of the homeworld they had never seen. Now they were learning that they had become strangers to their own species. "The crew is starting to understand that we're not really human anymore," Carter explained. "We're something new, something that Earth wouldn't recognize. We've spent 50 years adapting to life in deep space, developing technologies and tactics that our homeworld never imagined. We're more alien now than many of the species we're fighting." The captain walked to his cabin's viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, the world his grandparents had described in countless stories. But he had never seen it. And now he probably never would. The Terra Liberation Front had become something beyond human, a hybrid of human determination and alien technology that belonged nowhere in the galaxy. "What do you recommend, Doctor?" he asked. "We need to give the crew a new purpose," Carter replied. "They joined this mission to free humanity from oppression. Now they need to understand that we're fighting for something bigger than just human interests. We're fighting to reshape the entire galaxy." Harrison nodded slowly. The doctor was right. The Terra Liberation Front could not simply return to being human. They had evolved beyond that possibility. Instead, they would have to become something new, something that could lead the galaxy toward a better future. "Schedule crew assemblies on all ships," he ordered. "I want to address this issue directly." A few hours later, Harrison stood before the assembled crew of the Vengeance. Similar meetings were taking place throughout the human fleet as other captains delivered the same message to their personnel. "I know many of you are struggling with what we've accomplished," Harrison began. "You're wondering if we're still the same people who left Earth 50 years ago. The answer is no, we're not. We've become something new, something the galaxy has never seen before." He gestured toward the main display, which showed images of the various alien species that had contacted the fleet since the battle. "We have a choice to make," he continued. "We can try to return to being the humans that Earth remembers, restricted and controlled by alien powers. Or we can embrace what we've become and use our abilities to create a better galaxy for everyone." The crew listened in silence as their captain outlined the Terra Liberation Front's new mission. They would not just fight for human freedom, but for the liberation of all oppressed species. They would use their superior technology and tactics to break the hegemony's control over galactic civilization. "We may never see Earth again," Harrison concluded. "But we can build something better than Earth ever imagined. We can create a galaxy where no species is forced to accept limitations imposed by others. That is our true mission. And that is why we were born among the stars." The response was not immediate, but Harrison could see the change beginning in his crew's faces. They were starting to understand that their isolation had not been punishment, but preparation. They had been shaped by 50 years of exile into something that could accomplish what no purely human force ever could. On Earth, President William Hayes received the first reports about the battle while reviewing agricultural production statistics in his office. The news hit him like a physical blow, forcing him to sit down and read the intelligence briefing 3 times before he could believe it. "Get me Admiral Foster," he ordered his secretary. "Emergency priority." Admiral Patricia Foster arrived within minutes, her face already showing that she had received similar reports. As head of Earth's defense force, she was responsible for protecting the homeworld from any external threats. "Is it true?" Hayes asked. "Has someone really defeated a hegemony? Fleet?" "The reports are confirmed, Mr. President," Foster replied grimly. "A human fleet of unknown origin engaged and destroyed most of the hegemony Third Fleet near Nexus Prime. They're claiming to represent something called the Terra Liberation Front." Hayes felt a chill as he recognized the name. "Crawford's people. They're still alive." "It appears so, sir, and they've developed military capabilities far beyond anything we possess. Intelligence estimates suggest their technology is at least 20 years ahead of our current systems." The president stood and walked to his office window, looking out at the city beyond. Jake Morrison stood at the center of the Great Hall. The ceiling stretched so high above him that he could barely see it. Thousands of alien beings filled the curved seats that rose up like a mountain around him. Their eyes, tentacles, and sensor organs all pointed in his direction. The air smelled of different worlds, sweet gases from the Altarians, sharp metallic scents from the Zephyrians, and dozens of other odors that made his nose wrinkle. He had been Earth's voice in this place for 7 years. 7 long years of fighting for basic respect. 7 years of watching these aliens treat humans like children who needed to be managed and controlled. Today would be different. Today would be the last time. The Counselor Prime, a tall being with blue-gray skin and 4 arms, raised one hand for silence. The motion before us is simple, the translator spoke in perfect English. Should the species known as humanity be granted full voting membership in the Galactic Council? Jake had heard these words before. 3 times in the past, 2 years, he had stood in this exact spot and listened to this exact question. 3 times he had watched the vote fail, but this time he carried new orders from Earth. Orders that would change everything. The Zephyrian delegate stood up. His metal body gleamed under the bright lights. "I speak against this motion." His voice buzzed through the speakers. "Humans are too young. They have existed in space for less than 200 years. Most council species have traveled between stars for thousands of years." Jake wanted to laugh. The Zephyrians had been in space for 3,000 years, yet they still used fusion drives that humans had improved 50 years ago. Their ships moved like snails compared to human vessels. A Centaurian delegate joined the argument. "Humans are too violent. Look at their history. Wars every few decades. Nuclear weapons used against their own kind. How can we trust such a species with real power?" This time Jake did smile, but it was not a happy smile. The Centaurians had started 4 wars in the past century. Their idea of peace was simply making sure they won every fight. Furthermore, the Zephyrian continued, humans are unpredictable. They make decisions based on emotion rather than logic. They take risks that no sensible species would consider. More delegates began to speak. The Vegan representative worried about human expansion. The Kepler delegate questioned human technology. One after another, they listed reasons why humanity should remain a junior member, allowed to attend meetings, but not allowed to vote on important matters. Jake listened to it all. He had heard these same arguments for years. Behind him, in the observation area reserved for junior species, Captain Lisa Hayes watched from the human section. She wore her dress uniform, and Jake could see the anger in her face. Lisa had commanded human ships in 3 different peacekeeping missions. She had saved Altarian colonies from pirates. She had helped negotiate peace between the Rigel Republic and the Outer Worlds. She had risked her life for species that now claimed humans could not be trusted. The debate went on for 2 hours. A few species spoke in favor of humanity. The Procyon delegate mentioned human medical advances that had saved millions of lives. The Sirius representative talked about human engineering that had improved space travel for everyone. But their voices were few and quiet. Finally, the Counselor Prime called for order. "We will now vote. All in favor of granting full membership to humanity. Activate your voting crystals now." Jake watched the great board above the chamber. Small lights began to appear, each one representing a species that supported Earth. The number climbed slowly. 23, 37, 49. Then it stopped. "All opposed, activate your crystals now." The board exploded with red lights, hundreds of them. The final count appeared in letters 10 feet tall, for 52. Against, 847. Abstaining, 201. The hall fell silent. Jake looked up at the massive display, then turned to face the Counselor Prime. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small blue pin, the symbol of Earth's delegation to the Galactic Council. "Counselor Prime," Jake said, his voice carrying, clearly through the hall's speakers. "I have carried this pin for 7 years. It represents Earth's hope that we could be partners with the species of this galaxy, that we could work together as equals." He held the pin up so everyone could see it. Today, that hope dies. Jake walked to the podium at the center of the chamber. He placed the blue pin on its surface with a soft click that somehow seemed loud. In the silent hall, "By the authority given to me by the United Earth Government, I hereby withdraw humanity from all treaties, agreements, and obligations with the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, Earth recognizes no alien authority over Human space, human ships, or human citizens. The silence stretched for long seconds. Then the Zephyrian delegate stood up. You cannot do this. Humanity needs the Council. You need our protection, our trade, our technology. Jake turned to look at the metal being. Do we? Let me tell you what humanity provides to this Council. We run security for 60% of your trade routes. We staff your peacekeeping forces because most of your species refuse to fight. We share our medical knowledge freely while you charge us for basic information. We build your ships, repair your stations, and solve your problems. His voice grew stronger. And what do we get in return? We get to sit in the back and watch while you make decisions about our future. We get to ask permission to defend our own colonies. We get to be your servants while you treat us like children. More delegates began to stand and shout. Some demanded that Jake reconsider. Others threatened consequences if Earth really withdrew. A few species that had never spoken to humans before suddenly wanted to negotiate. Jake ignored them all. He looked up at Lisa Hayes in the observation area and nodded. She stood and began walking toward the exit. Around her, other humans started leaving their seats. You will regret this decision, the Counselor Prime said. Humanity cannot survive alone in this galaxy. There are dangers you do not understand. Threats that only the Council can protect you from. Jake picked up his briefcase and started walking toward the exit. He paused and looked back at the thousands of alien beings staring at him. Maybe you are right, he said. Maybe humanity cannot survive alone, but we have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed most species. We have gone from caves to starships in 10,000 years. We have never backed down from a fight or refused to help those who needed it. He straightened his shoulders. But if this Council thinks we need you more than you need us, then I guess we are about to find out who is right. Jake Morrison walked out of the Galactic Council chamber. Behind him, 1,000 species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia began to realize that they might have made a terrible mistake. The age of human cooperation was over. What came next would be entirely up to them.